I am Fang Yuan, and for 500 years I have pursued one singular goal: eternal life. Not the extended lifespan of powerful cultivators, not the temporary transcendence of venerables, but true immortality, absolute freedom from death, complete invulnerability to all threats, existence unbound by the natural laws that claim all other beings. Today, I speak to you of this ultimate pursuit, for eternal life represents not just the highest goal, but the only goal truly worthy of transcendent effort. Understand that most people's ambitions are trivial. Wealth, power, reputation, romantic love, family legacy. These are the pursuits that consume the majority of human lives. They are not bad goals. For normal circumstances and normal minds, they provide meaning and satisfaction. But for someone with the capacity to see beyond immediate concerns, for someone who understands the fundamental nature of existence, these goals reveal themselves as shadows, as temporary distractions from the only question that truly matters: how to escape mortality itself. Why is eternal life the supreme goal? Because all other ambitions are finite. Wealth can be taken, power can be lost. Relationships end with death. Legacies fade over generations. Every achievement, no matter how grand, eventually dissolves into meaninglessness because the achiever themselves ceases to exist. What value is there in building an empire only to never see it evolve, only to leave it to others who may destroy or forget what you created? Eternal life solves this fundamental problem. With unlimited time, you can pursue all interests without the pressure of finality. With true invincibility, you can explore dangers others must avoid. With transcendence over mortal limitations, you can reshape reality itself rather than being shaped by it. Eternal life is not a means to other ends, but the end that makes all other pursuits possible and meaningful. But eternal life is not merely about living forever. It is about achieving a state where your existence cannot be threatened by any force, internal or external, natural or artificial. This requires not just physical immortality, but psychological transcendence. You must become a being who cannot be broken by suffering, who cannot be tempted by desires, who cannot be manipulated by fears. True eternal life demands complete self-mastery at levels most cannot imagine. In my first life, I achieved great power and longevity through conventional cultivation methods. I became rank 6gu immortal, established my own influence, built foundations that should have secured my survival for centuries. Yet death came regardless, through circumstances beyond my control at that time. That experience taught me the insufficiency of conventional approaches. Power without absolute invulnerability is merely delayed defeat. My rebirth with 500 years of memories intact provided a second chance, but also a profound lesson. No matter how far conventional cultivation takes you, you remain vulnerable to fate, to stronger opponents, to circumstances you cannot fully control. True security requires transcending all possible vulnerabilities, becoming a being for whom death itself is not just unlikely but impossible. This understanding shapes every aspect of my approach. Every scheme, every alliance, every technique I pursue must ultimately serve this goal of absolute invincibility. Temporary advantages that do not contribute to this end are discarded. Long-term projects that do not eventually lead to this transcendence are re-evaluated or abandoned. This singular focus creates clarity and power that diffuse ambitions can never match. Most people lack such focus because they fear the implications. To commit absolutely to one supreme goal means sacrificing all other possibilities. It means accepting that many things you might have wanted comfort, relationships, conventional success, must become secondary or abandoned entirely. This level of commitment terrifies those who prefer the illusion of having everything. But diffusion of focus ensures mediocrity across all domains. The person who pursues multiple goals with partial commitment achieves competence, but never mastery in any area. The person who commits totally to one supreme goal may sacrifice much, but achieves transcendence in that chosen domain. For goals as radical as eternal life, partial commitment is worse than useless. It wastes time and resources without producing meaningful results. Let me speak now of the nature of time, for time is the ultimate constraint that makes eternal life so precious. Every living being exists within finite time, and how you use that time determines your fate. Most people waste vast quantities of time on trivialities, on activities that provide temporary pleasure but leave no lasting value. They entertain themselves with stories, they engage in social rituals, they pursue comfort and distraction. Then they die, having achieved nothing of enduring significance. I treat time as the most precious resource in existence. Every moment must serve my ultimate purpose or serve recovery necessary for continued progress. Entertainment, social obligation, idle curiosity. These are luxuries I cannot afford. Not because I deny pleasure or connection entirely, but because I recognize their true cost in time that could have been used for progress toward eternal life. This ruthless prioritization of time creates enormous compounding advantages. While others spend years in comfortable mediocrity, I spend those same years building capabilities and positioning that make further progress easier and faster. The difference accumulates over decades into insurmountable gaps. The cultivator who wastes time remains forever behind, never catching up to someone who consistently prioritizes progress. You must develop similar awareness about your time. Every hour you spend on activities that do not serve your chosen purposes is an hour stolen from your potential. Not all hours need to be intense effort. Recovery and rest are necessary, but even rest should serve purposes, providing energy for productive activity rather than mere entertainment. The key is conscious allocation. At the start of each day, evaluate how you intend to spend your time. Does this activity advance your goals? Does it build capabilities that will serve your purposes? Does it provide necessary recovery to maintain high-level performance? If the answer to all three is no, reconsider your plans. This level of intentionality transforms time from a passive constraint into an active resource. Now, let me address the psychological barriers that prevent most people from pursuing transcendent goals. The human mind evolved for survival in small social groups, not for pursuing immortality against cosmic odds. Our instincts favor comfort, connection, immediate rewards, patterns that served our ancestors well but constrain those seeking extraordinary achievement. Fear is perhaps the most fundamental barrier. Fear of failure, fear of social rejection, fear of the unknown, fear of suffering. These emotions evolved to keep you alive, but now keep you small. They convince you that ambitious goals are dangerous, that playing safe is wise, that extraordinary effort is foolish. Most people listen to these fears and never attempt anything truly great. I feel these fears. I am human after all, with a body shaped by the same evolutionary pressures as everyone else. Fear arises in threatening situations. Anxiety appears before major efforts. Doubt whispers that the goal may be impossible. But I never let these emotions control my actions. I acknowledge them as biological signals, then make decisions based on strategic analysis rather than emotional response. This is the difference between being controlled by fear and being informed by it. Fearful people avoid all situations that trigger anxiety, missing countless opportunities for growth. Fearless people charge blindly into danger, often making catastrophic mistakes. The wise person feels fear but acts despite it, using the information fear provides while maintaining control over responses. Developing this capacity requires exposure therapy of sorts, placing yourself repeatedly in situations that trigger fear until the automatic response weakens. Start with manageable challenges that make you slightly uncomfortable. Feel the fear, take the action anyway. Observe that the feared outcome did not materialize. Repeat this process, gradually increasing difficulty. Over time, fear loses its automatic power to control you. doubt represents another major barrier. Even when you overcome fear and take action, doubt whispers that your efforts are futile, that the goal is impossible, that you lack what it takes. This internal critic evolved to prevent overconfidence and unnecessary risks, but now it prevents necessary risks and bold action. I experienced doubt as well. 500 years of pursuit have not made eternal life easy or guaranteed. There have been moments when even I questioned whether the goal was truly achievable. But doubt never stops me. It becomes data to analyze. When doubt arises, I examine its basis. Are there legitimate gaps in my approach? Unforeseen obstacles? Then I address those issues. If doubt lacks substance, if it is merely emotional noise, I dismiss it. The key is treating doubt as information rather than truth. Doubtful thoughts arise in the mind like any other thoughts. They feel compelling because they carry emotional charge, but they are not inherently more valid than optimistic thoughts. Evaluate them objectively against evidence and strategic analysis. Act according to what the evidence suggests, not what your feelings suggest. Most people treat doubt as wisdom, as the voice of reason telling them to be realistic. This is how ambitious goals die, not through external obstacles, but through internal surrender to doubt. They feel the doubt, conclude their goal must be unrealistic, and abandon efforts before discovering what might have been possible. Perseverance through doubt requires developing distance between thoughts and actions. Thoughts arise and pass. Some are helpful, some are not. You don't need to believe every thought or act on every feeling. Develop the capacity to observe mental activity without being swept away by it. This mental space allows you to maintain course despite emotional turbulence. Let me speak now of the importance of systems over goals, though this may seem to contradict my earlier emphasis on singular purpose. Goals provide direction, but systems provide the mechanism for progress. A goal without supporting systems remains fantasy. Systems without clear goals waste effort on aimless activity. Most people focus exclusively on goals. They want to be wealthy, powerful, successful, but they lack systems' daily habits, decision-making frameworks, resource allocation patterns that would actually produce those outcomes. So they set ambitious goals, but maintain the same ineffective systems, wondering why nothing changes. My approach combines both. Eternal life is my supreme goal, providing absolute clarity of purpose. But every day, every week, every year follows systems designed to advance toward that goal. Daily cultivation practice, weekly strategic analysis and adjustment, monthly resource acquisition and positioning, annual major initiatives balanced against recovery and consolidation. These systems are not rigid routines but adaptive frameworks. They establish patterns that consistently move me toward the goal while maintaining flexibility to adjust to changing circumstances. When environments shift or new information becomes available, I modify the systems rather than abandoning the underlying goal. This creates sustainable progress rather than boom and bust cycles. You can apply this principle by identifying 3 to 5 key systems that would advance your chosen goals. What daily practices build necessary capabilities? What weekly reviews ensure you remain on course? What monthly actions accumulate resources or positioning? Establish these systems, execute them consistently, and adjust based on results, rather than mood or circumstance. The power of systems lies in compounding. Individual actions seem small, even insignificant, but when organized into consistent patterns and maintained over time, the cumulative effect becomes enormous. This is how mountains are worn down by water, how fortunes are built through consistent saving and investment, how skills are mastered through daily practice. I have benefited from this compounding for 500 years. Early efforts that seemed to produce minimal results eventually combined with later efforts to create capabilities far beyond what any single action could achieve. The cultivator who practices consistently for decades surpasses the one who practices sporadically for centuries. Systems create this consistency. Now let me address the role of luck in achievement. For this is another area where most people misunderstand reality. Society teaches that success comes from hard work and talent, that luck plays minimal role. This is half-truth designed to encourage effort while maintaining illusion of fairness. In reality, luck, randomness, unforeseen circumstances, timing plays enormous role in all outcomes. Throughout my lives, I have benefited from substantial luck. My rebirth with memories intact was extraordinary good fortune. Certain opportunities appeared at perfect moments. Certain enemies made critical mistakes that allowed escape or counterattack. Luck has been crucial to my survival and progress. But luck is not something you passively receive. You can position yourself to maximize opportunities for good luck while minimizing exposure to bad luck. This is not guaranteeing outcomes, but optimizing probabilities. The strategically aware person creates more opportunities for fortunate circumstances, while the unaware person stumbles blindly into random events. How do you position for luck? First, maintain wide awareness and diverse information sources. Luck often appears as unexpected opportunity to those paying attention. The person who knows many things, who maintains broad networks, who studies diverse fields, sees connections and opportunities others miss. Second, take calculated risks in multiple areas. Pure safety minimizes both upside and downside. Moderate risk taking creates exposure to positive randomness. The person who attempts multiple approaches, who explores various paths, increases chances that some will intersect with fortunate circumstances. Third, maintain resilience to recover from bad luck. Some randomness will always work against you. The anti-fragile person learns from setbacks and adapts. The fragile person is destroyed by them. Positioning for luck includes creating systems that turn negative randomness into learning opportunities, rather than fatal blows. I have positioned for luck throughout my existence. Broad study of cultivation methods created opportunities when specific paths proved insufficient. Multiple schemes running simultaneously meant that failure in one area did not compromise overall progress. Resilience built through countless setbacks allowed me to recover from bad luck rather than being eliminated by it. This strategic approach to luck does not eliminate randomness, but tilts probabilities in your favor. Over 500 years, these small probabilistic advantages have compounded into outcomes far beyond what pure chance would produce. Luck favored the prepared, the resilient, the strategically aware. Let me speak now of the importance of measurement and feedback, for without these you cannot know whether your efforts produce progress. Most people pursue goals blindly, working hard without clear metrics for success. They feel busy and productive but lack objective evidence that their actions actually advance desired outcomes. From the beginning, I established clear metrics for progress toward eternal life. Not vague feelings of improvement, but concrete measures: increased cultivation rank, specific techniques mastered, resources accumulated, strategic positioning achieved. Each milestone clearly advanced me toward the ultimate goal. When progress stalled or regressed, these metrics revealed the problem immediately. Stagnation in cultivation rank signaled methodological issues. Loss of resources indicated strategic errors. Failure to advance positioning suggested environmental changes, requiring adaptation. Objective measurement provided early warning that allowed course correction before problems became catastrophic. You must develop similar measurement systems for your goals. What concrete metrics indicate progress? How will you know if your actions produce desired results? Establish these measures at the outset, then review them regularly. When metrics show positive trends, double down on what works. When they show problems, diagnose and adjust immediately. Measurement also prevents self-deception. Without objective metrics, people rationalize lack of progress. I am learning a lot even if results aren't showing yet. External circumstances are preventing success. The process matters more than outcomes. These are comforting stories that maintain illusion of progress without actual advancement. Objective metrics cut through such self-deception. If your metrics show no progress, you have a problem that requires solution. If your actions consistently produce negative results, your approach is flawed. Honest measurement forces honest assessment and genuine improvement. The role of mentorship and teaching represents another important consideration in pursuit of extraordinary goals. Most people seek teachers to guide them towards success. They look for masters who will show them the path, provide shortcuts, ensure their progress. This approach has value for conventional goals within established systems. I have never relied on teachers in this way. Not because I reject learning from others. I have studied countless techniques and strategies from others' experiences, but I never allowed any teacher to become the source of my path. No one else's knowledge and experience can substitute for your own understanding of your unique situation and goals. Teachers provide frameworks, but you must adapt those frameworks to your specific circumstances. What worked for one person may fail for another because of differences in temperament, resources, timing, environmental factors. Blindly following another's path ignores these variables and ensures suboptimal results. Throughout 500 years, I have been my own teacher. I studied others' successes and failures, extracted the principles that explained those outcomes, then adapted those principles to my specific situation. This self-reliant approach meant slower initial progress than those with direct guidance, but it built deep understanding that proved more valuable in the long term. You should adopt similar approach. Seek knowledge from all sources, books, teachers, others' experiences, but always filter through your own analysis and adapt to your specific needs. Never become dependent on any single teacher or system. Develop ability to evaluate information critically, to see what is truly applicable to your situation, to discard what does not fit. This self-reliant learning requires greater initial effort, but produces deeper capability. The person who understands why techniques work can adapt them to new situations. The person who merely follows instructions remains limited to specific applications. In the G world, where circumstances constantly change, adaptability matters more than any specific knowledge. Let me address now the crucial concept of anti-fragility, which I mentioned earlier, but merits deeper exploration. Anti-fragile systems not only withstand stress and chaos, but actually improve because of them. They thrive in precisely the conditions that destroy fragile systems and merely challenge robust ones. I have deliberately cultivated anti-fragility throughout my cultivation journey. Setbacks that would destroy most make me stronger. Betrayals that would shatter trust in others reinforce my self-reliance. Failures that would discourage those expecting linear progress provide valuable data that improves future success probability. This anti-fragility emerges from specific structural choices. First, I never place all resources or effort into single approaches. Multiple parallel paths toward my goal ensure that failure in one area does not compromise overall progress. Second, I extract maximum learning from every experience, ensuring that even negative outcomes provide value. Third, I maintain psychological flexibility, never tying my sense of self to specific outcomes or methods. The result is that chaos strengthens me rather than weakening me. When others panic and make mistakes in crisis, I remain calm and capitalize on their errors. When circumstances shift unexpectedly, I adapt faster than those invested in rigid plans. When plans fail, I have alternatives ready rather than being paralyzed by loss. You can cultivate similar anti-fragility by building redundancy into your approaches. Never depend on single methods, single resources, single allies. Maintain multiple paths toward your goals. Treat failures as experiments that provide data rather than personal defeats. Develop psychological flexibility by defining yourself by purpose rather than specific achievements or methods. Over time, as anti-fragility develops, you will notice a profound shift. Where others see threats and obstacles, you see opportunities for growth. Where others fear chaos and uncertainty, you find them fertile ground for progress. The very forces that destroy most become your allies in pursuit of transcendence. The concept of legacy represents another area where conventional thinking limits human potential. Most people want to leave something behind: children, achievements, reputation, that will endure after their deaths. They build legacies hoping to achieve immortality through memory and influence. This conventional approach to legacy contains fundamental flaw. No legacy endures forever. Children forget parents within generations. Achievements become historical footnotes. Reputations fade or are rewritten by history's victors. The most enduring empires last mere millennia before crumbling into dust. My approach to legacy inverts this thinking. Rather than seeking immortality through temporary memorials, I seek true immortality that makes legacy questions irrelevant. With eternal life, I become my own legacy. No need to hope others remember me, because I will always be here to shape my own story. No need to worry about works outliving me, because I will be here to continue and evolve them. This is not arrogance, but logical conclusion. Temporary immortality through legacy requires faith in others, memories, and institutions. True immortality requires only one's own will and capability. The latter approach provides absolute control. The former leaves you at mercy of time, chance, and others' interpretations. You may object that eternal life seems impossible, that I am chasing fantasy. Fair enough, most goals worth pursuing seem impossible until someone achieves them. The Wright brothers' flight seemed impossible. Edison's light bulb seemed impossible. The very concept of GU immortals would have seemed impossible to ancient humans. Impossibility is merely current limit of human capability and imagination. Throughout history, every breakthrough began as impossibility. What separates those who achieve the impossible from those who declare things impossible is willingness to act despite uncertainty. The person who says this cannot be done stops at the first obstacle. The person who pursues the impossible treats each obstacle as problem to solve, each failure as data to analyze, each setback as temporary delay. My 500 years demonstrate that eternal life is not fantasy but difficult engineering problem. Each century has brought me closer through systematic problem solving. Techniques that seemed impossible in my first life became achievable in my second. Paths that were blocked in one era opened in another. Progress is not linear, but it is real, built on accumulated knowledge and capability. The skeptic would ask, what if you fail? What if after another 500 years, eternal life remains elusive? The answer is simple. Failure only occurs when you surrender. As long as I continue pursuing with absolute commitment, adapting to new information, learning from each setback, I am succeeding at being the kind of person who attempts the impossible. Even if ultimate success never comes, the journey itself transforms me into something extraordinary. The person who commits to eternal life for a millennium becomes capable beyond what most achieve in lifetimes of conventional pursuit. The process creates value even if the final outcome remains uncertain. Most people avoid such uncertain pursuits because they cannot tolerate ambiguity. They want guarantees, clear paths, measurable success. This preference for certainty over possibility ensures they never achieve anything truly great. The great achievements all began in uncertainty, pursued by those willing to tolerate decades or lifetimes of ambiguous progress. Tolerance for uncertainty becomes easier as you accumulate evidence of progress. In my early years, eternal life seemed a distant dream. Now, after centuries of systematic advancement, it feels like engineering challenge with clear path forward, though still difficult. Each step taken in uncertainty provides evidence that reduces future uncertainty. You can develop similar tolerance by starting with smaller uncertain pursuits. Choose goals that stretch your capabilities but remain achievable with intense effort. Experience the discomfort of uncertainty, the frustration of ambiguous progress, the eventual satisfaction of breakthrough. As you succeed with smaller uncertainties, your tolerance increases, preparing you for larger, more ambitious pursuits. The cultivation world itself demonstrates this principle. What began as primitive techniques manipulating natural energies has evolved into complex systems capable of venerables who reshape continents. Each generation built on previous achievements, pushing boundaries further. Despite initial uncertainty about what was possible, my own journey follows this pattern. Early rebirth provided foundation of knowledge from previous life. That knowledge enabled achievements that generated new knowledge. New knowledge created capabilities that made further achievements possible. The process is iterative, each cycle expanding possibility space. What seemed impossible at cycle 1 becomes foundation for cycle 2. This iterative process requires patience most lack. They expect rapid transformation, immediate results, linear progress. When reality provides slow, uneven advancement with frequent setbacks, they abandon efforts as futile. The patient cultivator continues through cycles, knowing each one expands future possibilities even if immediate results disappoint. Patience itself becomes cultivated skill. Through repeated cycles of effort, setback, learning, adaptation, you develop confidence in the process. You learn to trust that consistent strategic effort produces results over sufficient time, even if timing and path cannot be predicted exactly. Let me speak now of the relationship between individual effort and environmental opportunity. Achievement requires both. No amount of effort succeeds in completely hostile environment. No amount of favorable circumstance produces greatness without sustained effort. Most people blame environment for their failures. If I had better opportunities, I would succeed. The system is rigged against me. I was born in wrong time and place. This external blame absolves them of responsibility while ensuring continued failure. The environment exists as it is. Your task is to navigate it effectively or change it. I have succeeded in multiple environments, from the primitive Qingmao Mountain to the chaotic central continent, from times of relative stability to eras of constant war. Each environment presented different opportunities and constraints. Rather than complaining about unfavorable conditions, I analyzed what was possible within those conditions and pursued those possibilities with maximum intensity. Environmental analysis becomes crucial skill in any given situation. Certain paths forward exist while others remain blocked. The strategically aware person identifies viable paths and pursues them aggressively while conserving resources for when better opportunities arise. The short-sighted person either wastes effort on impossible paths or gives up entirely when the environment seems unfavorable. You can develop this skill by studying history and current circumstances systematically. What constraints currently limit your options? What opportunities exist within those constraints? How have others succeeded in similar situations? What patterns suggest future changes that might open new paths? This analysis does not eliminate uncertainty, but provides direction within uncertainty. You cannot control the environment, but you can position yourself advantageously within it. The person who understands current constraints and opportunities moves toward goals more effectively than the person who ignores environment entirely or blames it without analysis. Resilience represents another crucial factor in long-term achievement. The path to transcendent goals includes inevitable failures, betrayals, setbacks, periods of stagnation. Resilience is the capacity to absorb these blows without losing commitment to purpose, to recover from defeat without abandoning the quest. I have been defeated countless times. Plans that took decades to develop failed spectacularly. Allies I invested heavily in betrayed me at critical moments. Periods of progress spanning years ended in catastrophe that set me back to near beginning. Each time, resilience allowed me to analyze what went wrong, adapt my approach, and continue pursuing the goal with undiminished intensity. Resilience is not innate trait but cultivated capacity. It develops through repeated exposure to adversity combined with effective recovery systems. Each time you face setback, recover, and continue, you strengthen the neural and psychological pathways associated with resilience. Over time, your baseline tolerance for difficulty increases, Setbacks that once seemed devastating become manageable obstacles. Effective recovery systems prove crucial. After major defeats, I implement structured recovery periods focused on analysis, physical restoration, rebuilding resources, and strategic repositioning. This is not aimless waiting but active preparation for next phase of effort. The resilient person treats recovery as integral part of the process, rather than interruption. You can build similar resilience by developing recovery systems for your own pursuits. When setbacks occur, follow structured process. Analyze what went wrong without self-blame. Identify specific lessons learned. Develop modified approaches incorporating those lessons. Rebuild necessary resources and capabilities. Then resume effort with adjusted strategy. This systematic approach to resilience transforms setbacks from random disasters into structured learning opportunities. Over time, you develop confidence, not just in your ability to achieve, but in your ability to recover from failure and continue stronger. This confidence itself becomes anti-fragile advantage, allowing bolder actions because you trust your recovery capacity. Let me address now the concept of transcendent purpose, for not all purposes are equal. Conventional purposes, wealth, status, family provide meaning within normal human limitations. Transcendent purposes operate beyond those limitations, requiring capabilities and sacrifices most cannot imagine. Eternal life represents transcendent purpose for me. It requires overcoming fundamental natural laws. It demands capabilities beyond current human limits. It necessitates sacrifices of comfort, relationship, conventional morality that most would find intolerable. Yet this very transcendence provides meaning and challenge that conventional purposes cannot match. Transcendent purposes share common characteristics. First, they exceed current known limits of possibility. Second, they require capabilities that do not yet exist or are extremely rare. Third, they demand sustained effort across decades or lifetimes. Fourth, they transform the pursuer into something fundamentally different from what they began. As the Wright brothers' pursuit of powered flight was transcendent. At the time, no one knew if heavier-than-air flight was possible. It required developing new materials, new aerodynamics, new engines. The brothers sacrificed personal comfort and financial security to pursue this goal. They transformed from bicycle mechanics into pioneers of aviation. You may not seek eternal life, but you can identify transcendent purposes in your own domain. What goal in your field exceeds current limits? What capability would transform your potential if developed? What pursuit would require you to become a fundamentally different person? These represent transcendent purposes worth total commitment. The challenge lies in distinguishing genuine transcendent purposes from ego-driven fantasies. True transcendent purposes produce tangible progress markers over time. Fantasies remain vague dreams without concrete steps. Test your purpose by developing systems and metrics. If consistent effort produces measurable advancement, you have genuine transcendent pursuit. If effort produces only rationalizations and no progress, you have fantasy. Transcendent purposes also require community of sorts, not social network for validation, but network of individuals pursuing similar transcendence. These relationships differ from conventional friendships. They exist for mutual advancement toward shared types of goals, rather than emotional comfort or entertainment. The connection comes from recognition of similar drives and mutual benefit in progress. I have formed such connections sparingly across centuries. Fellow demon path cultivators who understood the value of ruthless pragmatism, ambitious individuals willing to sacrifice conventional morality for greater achievement. Scholars and researchers whose knowledge complemented my own pursuit. These relationships provided strategic advantages without emotional dependencies that would compromise independence. Such communities remain rare because most people lack capacity or willingness for transcendent pursuit. They prefer comfort of conventional goals and social validation. When you find fellow travelers on transcendent paths, Value them appropriately but never become dependent. Mutual benefit, not emotional need, defines these connections. Let me speak now of the relationship between transcendent pursuit and conventional society. Society exists to maintain stability and ensure collective survival. It rewards conformity, punishes deviation, channels individual effort toward group benefit. This served humanity well during primitive eras, but now constrains those seeking individual transcendence. Transcendent goals inevitably conflict with societal expectations. Pursuing the impossible requires resources society considers yours to share. Developing unusual capabilities raises concerns about potential threats. Rejecting conventional morality challenges social cohesion. Those pursuing transcendence must navigate this tension carefully. I have maintained strategic relationship with society throughout my existence. When operating within societal structures served my purposes, I conformed enough to avoid unnecessary conflict while pursuing my goals. When societal constraints became too limiting, I operated outside those structures, accepting the costs of isolation and hostility. This strategic navigation requires understanding society's functions and limits. Recognize that social norms exist to maintain order, not to enable individual transcendence. Accept that society will never voluntarily provide resources or approval for goals that challenge its stability. Plan accordingly, extract value when possible, minimize conflict when necessary, operate independently when required. The transcendent pursuer becomes like force of nature, respecting existing structures when convenient but flowing around or through them when they block progress. Never become society's enemy unless strategically necessary, but never let societal expectations define your path or limit your ambition. As this discourse extends into deeper waters of transcendent pursuit, let me address the concept of meaning-making. Most people derive meaning from external sources, relationships, achievements, social roles. These external meanings prove fragile because they depend on circumstances outside your control. Transcendent pursuit creates internal meaning-making system. Meaning comes not from external validation, but from progress toward chosen purpose. Each obstacle overcome provides intrinsic satisfaction. Each capability developed reinforces sense of purpose. This internal system proves resilient because it depends only on your own actions and commitment. I experience meaning daily through this internal system. A successful scheme executed provides satisfaction regardless of whether others approve. A new technique mastered generates fulfillment, even if no one else recognizes the achievement. Progress toward eternal life creates purpose that no external circumstance can take away. This internal meaning-making requires developing intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation praise, rewards, social approval works for conventional goals, but proves unreliable for transcendent pursuits that society does not value or understand. You must learn to find satisfaction in the work itself, in the becoming, in the mastery and progress. Developing intrinsic motivation involves reframing your relationship to effort. Stop seeing work as means to external rewards. Start seeing it as expression of your chosen purpose, as the process of becoming who you must become to achieve your goals. The effort itself becomes meaningful because it manifests your commitment to transcendence. Over time, as intrinsic motivation develops, external validation becomes irrelevant. You pursue goals because they matter to you, because they represent the kind of existence you choose, not because of how others will react or what rewards they might provide. This internal sovereignty over meaning provides freedom that external dependencies can never match. Let me examine now the role of creativity in transcendent achievement. For creativity represents the capacity to generate solutions where none appear to exist. Conventional success follows established paths: education, career progression, social networking. Transcendent success requires creating new paths where none exist. Throughout 500 years, I have needed creativity beyond what formal education provides. When conventional cultivation methods proved insufficient, I invented new approaches combining multiple paths. When resources seemed unavailable, I created schemes to generate them from unexpected sources. When enemies blocked all obvious paths, I developed indirect strategies that turned their strength into weaknesses. Creativity emerges from deep knowledge, combined with willingness to violate assumptions. Most people lack creativity because they accept current reality as fixed, because they follow rules without questioning their necessity, because they fear failure too much to experiment with unconventional approaches. The creatively capable person questions everything. What assumptions are others accepting that I can challenge? What rules can I break without catastrophic consequences? What resources exist that others overlook because they don't fit conventional categories? Answering these questions generates creative solutions that others miss entirely. I cultivate creativity through deliberate practice. Regular exposure to diverse information creates unexpected connections. Systematic questioning of assumptions reveals hidden possibilities. Controlled experimentation with low-risk, unconventional approaches builds confidence in creative thinking. Each practice session strengthens capacity to generate solutions where others see only problems. You can develop similar creative capacity by establishing routines that encourage unconventional thinking. Dedicate time each week to studying fields outside your normal interests. Question one assumption daily about how your world works. Experiment with small creative approaches to current problems. Over time, creative thinking becomes natural response rather than rare occurrence. The transcendent pursuer becomes creative force, not just problem solver, but reality shaper. Conventional reality with its established paths and accepted limitations no longer constrains you. You see possibilities where others see fixed conditions. This creative vision combined with execution capacity allows achieving what others declare impossible. Let me address now the concept of transcendent community, for even solitary pursuits benefit from selective connection with like-minded individuals. Conventional community provides social validation and emotional support. Transcendent community provides strategic alliances, knowledge exchange, mutual challenge toward higher capabilities. Such communities remain rare because transcendent goals attract few participants. Most people prefer comfort of conventional belonging. Those pursuing the impossible often find themselves isolated not by choice, but because others cannot comprehend or tolerate their drive. I have formed transcendent alliances sparingly across centuries. Fellow demon path cultivators sharing ruthless pragmatism. Ambitious researchers willing to violate conventional ethics for knowledge. Strategic partners recognizing mutual benefit in pursuing difficult goals. These relationships differ fundamentally from conventional friendships. They exist for advancement, not comfort. Transcendent community requires different rules than conventional social interaction. Honesty without sentimentality, challenge without malice, mutual benefit without exploitation, recognition that alliances serve purposes and may dissolve when those purposes change. This pragmatic structure allows intense cooperation without emotional dependencies that compromise independence. Finding such community requires patience and discernment. Most who claim transcendent ambition prove conventional at core, unwilling to pay actual costs of genuine transcendence. Test potential allies through shared challenges, through willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, through commitment to difficult actions. Those who endure these tests prove worthy of deeper alliance. When you find true transcendent community, invest in it strategically. Share knowledge that multiplies mutual capability. Challenge each other to higher standards. Support one another's progress without compromising individual independence. Such alliances accelerate progress toward individual transcendent goals while maintaining self-sovereignty. The transcendent individual remains solitary at core but selectively connected at periphery. Complete isolation wastes opportunities for mutual advancement. Complete embedding in community sacrifices individual sovereignty. The wise balance maintains core independence while leveraging selective alliances for strategic advantage. Let me speak now of the relationship between transcendent pursuit and conventional morality. Society's moral systems evolved to ensure group survival and cooperation. They prioritize collective benefit over individual ambition, stability over innovation, conformity over deviance. These systems served humanity well in primitive conditions, but now constrain those seeking individual transcendence. Transcendent goals inevitably conflict with conventional morality. Pursuing the impossible requires resources society expects you to share. Developing unusual capabilities raises concerns about potential threats to social order. Rejecting conventional values challenges the very foundations of moral systems designed to maintain cohesion. The transcendent individual must navigate this conflict strategically. Complete rejection of morality creates unnecessary enemies and wastes energy on avoidable conflicts. Complete conformity sacrifices the independence required for transcendent achievement. The wise path involves selective engagement, following moral norms when they serve strategic purposes, violating them when necessary for progress, always calculating costs and benefits. I have operated within this strategic tension for centuries. When operating within societal structures, I conformed enough to avoid unnecessary conflict while pursuing my goals. When societal constraints became too limiting, I operated outside those structures, accepting costs of isolation and hostility. This pragmatic navigation allowed extracting value from society without being consumed by it. Conventional morality serves its purpose for conventional lives. If your goals align with societal expectations, embrace moral systems without apology. But if you pursue transcendence, if your goals exceed what society can accommodate, then you must develop moral pragmatism, evaluating ethical constraints by how they serve or hinder your purpose rather than accepting them as absolute. This does not mean mindless violation of all norms. Unnecessary conflict wastes resources better used for progress, but neither does it mean compromising transcendent goals to maintain social approval. The transcendent individual becomes moral unto themselves, developing ethical framework that serves their purpose while minimizing avoidable conflict. As this discourse reaches its conclusion, let me summarize the architecture of transcendent achievement. Singular transcendent purpose providing absolute direction. Ruthless time allocation treating every moment as precious resource. Systematic overcoming of psychological barriers through deliberate practice. Integrated systems replacing aimless effort with structured progress. Strategic positioning for luck rather than passive waiting. Objective measurement preventing self-deception. Self-reliant learning adapting knowledge to specific circumstances. Anti-fragile resilience turning setbacks into advantage. Internal meaning making providing satisfaction independent of external validation. Creative problem solving generating paths where none appear to exist. Selective transcendent community leveraging mutual advancement without dependency. Pragmatic navigation of societal constraints maximizing opportunity while preserving independence. These elements working together create something far greater than sum of parts. The transcendent pursuer becomes not just individual seeking goals, but force of nature reshaping reality according to chosen vision. Obstacles that stop others become stones. Limitations that constrain most become challenges to overcome. The impossible becomes merely difficult. I am Fang Yuan. Eternal life remains ahead, still requiring effort, sacrifice, brilliance. But 500 years demonstrate the architecture works. Progress continues. Capabilities expand. The path reveals itself step by step. You possess similar potential. Choose your transcendent purpose consciously. Build the architecture that makes achievement possible. Walk your path with absolute commitment. The horizon of possibility awaits.